The Dreadnoughts, Dreadnought, Iceberg, the eternal prison of space marines, a deep dive into the most horrifying fate in Warhammer 40,000. Welcome, battle brothers and lore enthusiasts. Today we descend into one of the most disturbing concepts in all of Warhammer 40,000, the Dreadnought. What the Imperium calls an honor may actually be the cruelest fate imaginable. Imagine being mortally wounded, your body destroyed beyond repair, but instead of the Emperor's peace, you're sealed inside a walking tomb. Your consciousness trapped, your body gone, your humanity slowly eroding over centuries, millennia even, as you're awakened only for war, then forced back into dreamless sleep. This is the Dreadnought, and today we're going layer by layer through an iceberg of the absolute worst situations you can face in this so-called honor. Strap in. Even by 40K standards, this gets dark. The basic horror. Let's start with what most people know. You're a space marine. You take catastrophic damage in battle. Maybe a Tyranid bio-titan steps on you. Maybe an orc warboss cleaves you in half. Maybe plasma fire melts most of your organs. You should die. You want to die. But you're too valuable. Too skilled. So, the tech marines entomb you. Your ruined body is cut away. What's left? Maybe just a torso, a head, fragments of your nervous system. Gets hardwired into a sarcophagus. Cables pierce what remains of you. Life support fluids flood your chamber. You become part of the machine. The sleep between wars. Here's the first real horror most people don't think about. The sleep isn't like normal sleep. It's described as a void, a nothingness. You don't dream, you don't rest, you simply aren't. And then suddenly you are again, ripped back into consciousness, for battle, disoriented, in pain. Your last memory, perhaps from 100 years ago, the world has moved on without you. Time dilation and confusion. Dreadnoughts frequently wake up, not knowing what era they're in. They ask for brothers who died centuries ago. They reference battles long forgotten. Some wake up and think the Horus heresy is still happening, 10,000 years after it ended. Imagine waking up and asking for your best friend, only to be told he's been dead for 400 years. Then you go back to sleep. Then you wake up and ask again, having forgotten, over and over. The loss of humanity. Space Marines are already barely human, enhanced, indoctrinated, psychologically conditioned, but they still have some humanity. Dreadnoughts lose even that. You can't feel anything. No warmth, no touch, no taste, no smell. Your sensory inputs are now machine readings. Thermal signatures, Auspex data, target acquisition rooms. Some Dreadnoughts report phantom sensations, feeling arms they no longer have, an itch they can never scratch, the sensation of a heartbeat in a chest that's been replaced by a fusion reactor. The crushing boredom. Let's talk about something rarely discussed. What happens to a mind built for war? When there's no war, you're awake. There's no immediate battle. Maybe you're on a ship in warp transit. Maybe you're standing in the chapter monastery between deployments. You can't move freely. You can't interact normally. You can't train your body because you don't have one. You're just there. A consciousness in a metal box, waiting. Some dreadnoughts have been recorded making the same repetitive movements, rotating a weapon mount back and forth, for hours. Not because they need to, I need to, because they're going insane from the nothingness. The rage that never ends. Many dreadnoughts become increasingly aggressive and unstable. The Black Rage for Blood Angels. Dreadnoughts is particularly horrifying. They're already suffering from genetic psychosis, now trapped in a war machine with no release. The Flesh Tearers have dreadnoughts that have to be restrained between battles because they'll attack anything that moves. The Death Company dreadnoughts are essentially rabid, kept in chains, released only to die gloriously because there was too far gone to save. Watching everyone you love die. You knew this would happen when you became a Marine. Brothers die, but you were supposed to die with them. Instead, you watch generation after generation of your chapter life and die. The chapter master who interred you, dead 300 years. The scout you mentored, rose to captain, led glorious campaigns, died of old age for a space marine at 400 years old. You were at his funeral. You'll be at his successor's funeral, and the next one, and the next. You are a living relic in the most literal, most horrible sense. The theological crisis. Here's one that doesn't get explored enough. Space Marines believe that in death they join the Emperor. It's their faith, their hope, their reward for a life of service. But are you dead? The chaplains say you're honored, that you serve still, but you're not alive. Not really. Are you denied the Emperor's side? Are you in a limbo? Some dreadnoughts have been recorded expressing anguish about this, that they might be cut off from the Emperor's light forever, unable to truly die, unable to ascend. Chaos, dreadnoughts, when the prison becomes hell. You think loyalist dreadnoughts have it bad? Chaos. Dreadnoughts are worse in every conceivable way. First, the technology is worse. Chaos. Forces use older, more degraded dreadnought patterns. The life support fails more often. The pain suppressors don't work. Some Chaos Marines are interred while still conscious, screaming, feeling everything. Second, the warp. Chaos Dreadnoughts are exposed to warp energies. Demons whisper to them in their sleep, except they can't escape by waking up because they're locked in a sarcophagus. They suffer warp-induced nightmares, hallucinations, mutations. Third, Chaos Dreadnoughts are often kept awake. The Death Guard keeps some of their plague-ridden dreadnoughts conscious for centuries, rotting inside their sarcophagi, feeling their bodies decay and regenerate in endless cycles of disease. The World Eaters chain their dreadnoughts up and leave them awake, starving for battle, for decades between wars. They go completely insane with rage. And that's the point. The corrupted sarcophagus. Imagine this. You're interred. Everything goes as planned. But over the centuries, something goes wrong. Maybe chaos, corruption, maybe a Genestealer cult infiltrates your chapter. Maybe a demon gets into the fortress, monastery, and something gets into your sarcophagus. You can't move. You can't resist. You can't even scream effectively. And something is in there with you, changing you, corrupting you, from the inside out. Your own body becomes an enemy you can't escape. There are recorded instances of dreadnoughts being discovered with demonic possessions. The pilot corrupted, but the machine still functioning, walking around with a demon wearing a space marine's corpse inside. The malfunction, locked-in syndrome. Your sarcophagus seals, everything's fine. Then something breaks. Not the life support that keeps working, not your brain that's still functioning, but the interface, the connection between your mind and the Dreadnought systems. You're awake, you're aware, but you can't move the Dreadnought. You can't speak through the Vox. You can't see through the sensors. You're locked in a metal coffin, alive, conscious, but completely cut off. And depending on how your chapter operates, you might stay that way for years before anyone realizes. You're just a silent dreadnought in the reclusium. No one knows you're screaming inside. The failed interment. Sometimes the interment process itself goes wrong. Maybe the tech marines rush it during a desperate battle. Maybe the equipment is damaged. Maybe you're just unlucky. You're installed wrong. The neural connections aren't quite right. Every movement sends pain signals. Your sensory input is scrambled. Seeing through the auspex gives you migraines. Moving your weapon arms feels like your bones are breaking, but you're operational, functional. So they use you. They send you to war, every moment agony, because the Imperium needs every weapon it can get. Some chapters have protocols to grant the Emperor's peace to failed interments. Some don't. Some can't afford to. The Lamenter's curse, when you're all that's left. The Lamenters are a chapter cursed with bad luck. They've been nearly destroyed multiple times. Imagine being a Lamenter dreadnought, waking up to find that your chapter has been wiped out again. You're one of 12 Marines left, one of 3 dreadnoughts. You're literally older than every other member of your chapter. You remember when there were 10 companies. Now there's barely one. You've watched your chapter die and resurrect and die again. Over and over. And you can't even die to stay with your fallen brothers. You're too valuable. They need you. So you march on. The last memory of better days. Watching your chapter suffer. Bjorn the Fell-Handed. The oldest nightmare. Bjorn the Fell-Handed of the Space Wolves is the oldest living space marine. He was alive during the Horus Heresy. He knew the Primarchs personally. He's been a dreadnought for over 10,000 years. Don't think about that number. 10,000 years. Everyone he ever knew is dead. The Imperium he fought for is unrecognizable. The Emperor he served is a corpse on a throne. His Primarch has been missing for millennia. He's awake maybe a few days per century. Each time, the universe is more alien. Each time he's more isolated. He's not even really a space wolf anymore. He's a legend. A myth. A thing that occasionally wakes up and speaks in riddles about an age no one else remembers. Is that an honor? Or is it the longest, loneliest imprisonment imaginable? The Dreadnought who wants to die. This is documented. There are dreadnoughts who beg to be deactivated, who plead for the Emperor's peace, who ask every time they wake if they can finally rest. And they're denied, because they're too valuable, too skilled, too important to the chapter's survival. Imagine begging for death for 1,000 years, being denied for 1,000 years, and knowing you might go on for 1,000 more. There's the Blood Angel's Dreadnought, who, upon being awakened, asks the same question every time. Is it over? Can I sleep now? Meaning truly sleep. Final sleep. The answer is always no. The perpetual awakening. Here's a malfunction almost worse than being locked in. A glitch that keeps you in a state of perpetual half-consciousness. You can't fully wake up. You can't fully sleep. You're in a twilight state, aware but unable to act, unable to rest. Fragments of dreams mix with censored data. You hear vox chatter, but can't respond. You see targeting information, but can't engage. You're trapped in the moment between sleep and waking forever. Some tech marines might eventually fix this. Others might never notice. You could spend centuries in this liminal hell. The traitor within. Chaos corruption, while loyal. You're a loyal Dreadnought. You serve the Emperor faithfully. But chaos doesn't care about your loyalty. The warp gets into your dreams. The void between battles isn't empty anymore. It's full of whispers, promises, temptations. And you can't block them out. You can't pray them away. You can't distract yourself. You feel yourself changing. Thoughts that aren't yours creeping in. Urges you've never had. And worst of all, you might not be able to tell anyone. Your vox might be restricted. Your warnings might be dismissed as battle madness. You watch yourself become a traitor from the inside, unable to stop it, screaming internally as your body becomes a weapon against everything you died protecting. The High Fleet Dreadnought? Picture this horror! You're a Dreadnought. Your chapter faces a Tyrannid invasion. You fight valiantly, you fall in battle, but you don't die. The Tyrannids take you specifically. They take your sarcophagus, with you still alive inside. They can't digest you through the armor, but they can study you. They can hook you into the hive mind. They can keep you alive, awake, exposed to the psychic pressure of billions of alien minds. You feel their hunger. You experience their consciousness. Utterly alien, utterly wrong. And you're aware, somewhere in this nightmare, that they're learning from you, using your existence to understand how to fight space marines better. You've become a traitor without choosing to. Your continued existence helps the Great Devourer consume the galaxy. The Dark Eldar's prize. This is it. This might be the absolute worst fate. The Dark Eldar capture you. A Dreadnought is a prize beyond measure for the homunculi. A space marine, already trapped in a prison with built-in life support they can exploit. They keep you alive, they keep you awake, and they get creative. They wire your pain receptors to just give you feedback. They pipe in sounds, visions, sensations. They might flay what's left of your body and regenerate it just to flay it again. They might put you in an arena and force you to fight, but disable your weapons so you can only watch yourself fail. The homunculi have eternity. They have been perfecting torture for millions of years. and you're a project that can potentially last forever because your sarcophagus is designed to keep you alive. You will beg for death. You will promise anything. You will break in ways you didn't know were possible. And they'll just laugh and continue. Because your suffering sustains them literally. It feeds their souls. The Pariah Dreadnought. Here's one from the darker corners of lore. A Dreadnought whose pilot is a blank. A pariah, someone with no warp presence. You already suffered from your condition in life. People instinctively hated you, felt uneasy around you. As a Dreadnought, it's worse. Your brothers can't stand to be near you. The chaplains who might give you comfort can't bear your presence. You fight alone, always. Even when surrounded by your chapter, you are completely isolated. And if your chapter relies on psychic powers, like the Thousand Suns before their fall, or the Blood Ravens, you're anathema. You're necessary, but reviled. A weapon that makes its own wielders sick. You serve forever, completely alone, knowing you'll never have even the cold comfort of brotherhood. The forgotten Dreadnought. The Imperium is vast. Record-keeping fails. Mistakes happen. You're in your sarcophagus, waiting for your next deployment. The facility you're in gets abandoned during a crisis. Maybe your chapter is destroyed. Maybe there's a clerical error. Maybe the administratum simply forgets. And you're left there, in the dark, in silence. Possibly awake if your sleep function failed. Decades pass, centuries, millennia, you can't move. Dreadnoughts need support systems to activate. You can't call out. There's no one to hear. Your power supply keeps ticking, keeping you alive, unable to starve, unable to die. You have nothing but your thoughts for hundreds or thousands of years. Until maybe, just maybe, someone finds you. And you've been awake the whole time. This has happened. There are records of dreadnoughts being rediscovered after being lost for centuries. Their pilots utterly insane from the isolation. The theological answer. Here's the thing that might be worst of all. What if this is intentional? What if the Emperor in his infinite wisdom designed this fate specifically, not as an honor, but as a punishment, a purgatory? What if dreadnoughts are those space marines who weren't worthy of his peace, who must serve and suffer until they've earned their rest? Some ecclesiarchy scholars have suggested this, that the dreadnought is a test, a trial, a purification through suffering. If that's true, then every dreadnought is being punished, and their service might never be enough. They might never earn the peace they crave. That's a special kind of hell, not knowing if you're honored or damned, not knowing if there's an end, serving faithfully while suspecting you might be forsaken. The last dreadnought. Imagine being the last one, not just of your chapter, of everyone. The galaxy has ended. The Imperium has fallen. Chaos has won, or the Tyranids have consumed everything. Or the Necrons have awakened fully and scoured all life. You're in a fortress on a dead world, still powered, still alive. And you're alone, completely, utterly alone. The last consciousness in the galaxy, unable to move without support crew that no longer exists, unable to die, because your systems are too robust. Just existence, forever, in silence, in darkness, waiting for the heat death of the universe. The truth. And finally, we arrive at the darkest possibility of all. What if they know? What if the tech marines, the chapter masters, the high lords, what if they all know that the Dreadnought is torture? What if they understand completely that it's a prison, a nightmare, a fate worse than death? And they do it anyway, because the Imperium needs weapons more than it needs mercy. Because a chapter's survival matters more than one marine's suffering. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and war demands sacrifices. What if every time they enter a fallen brother, they know they are damning him, and they do it anyway, and they call it an honor, because that makes it easier? The real horror of the Dreadnought isn't the physical prison. It's the moral prison. It's being trapped in a society that will sacrifice your eternity for its survival and call it a blessing. So there you have it. The Dreadnought iceberg. From the surface level horror of being trapped in a walking tank, down to the existential nightmare of eternal, purposeful damnation in the name of duty. The Dreadnought represents everything that's wrong with the Imperium in miniature. It takes its heroes and destroys them. It takes service and perverts it into slavery. It takes honor and makes it horrifying. And yet, Space Marines volunteer. When they're dying, some beg to be interred, because even knowing all this, even understanding the horror that awaits, they believe in the Imperium. They believe in humanity. They believe their suffering matters. Maybe that's the most horrifying thing of all. That the Dreadnought exists because there are heroes willing to endure it. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And the Dreadnought is what happens when war never ends. When death becomes impossible. When even the peace of the grave is denied in service to survival. The Dreadnought isn't an honor. It's a warning. It's what happens when we value victory over humanity. And in Warhammer 40,000, that's just Tuesday. Thanks for watching. Remember to leave your thoughts below. And maybe, just maybe, be grateful that when you die, you get to actually die. For the Emperor, for better or worse. End transmission.